Hi friends, and welcome to this video. In this video we're going to be going through how we do a walk around in the real world on the Airbus A320. We're going to be going through everything we look for and doing a step-by-step breakdown of what the different components and sections of the aircraft are. I'm a pilot in the real world with almost 10,000 hours, but this video is in no way designed to be training for the real world airplanes. This is for entertainment purposes only, and it's designed to maximize the realism and the fun in your flight simulation experience. So if you're a real world pilot, please do follow your own official company manuals. With that being said, let's get to the video. So here we are in front of our Airbus A320 in the Starflyer livery, which is one of my favourite liveries for the Airbus. Absolutely love to see black on an aircraft, and we're going to be doing the walk around as mentioned before, and there's three things mainly that we're looking for during the walk around. We're looking for any damage to the aircraft skin or anything on the aircraft itself. We're looking to make sure that all hatches and latches are closed and secured and locked, and we're also making sure that no hydraulic fluid or oil is leaking from any part of the aircraft as well. So let's basically jump right into it. You can see it's a beautiful morning here at JFK International in New York. The sun's just rising and there's clear skies, so let's just head over here and we'll start off where we usually start off. So on a normal day, pilots would enter and exit from the L1 door, and this is the main door where passengers board as well. Passengers also board from the L2 door, which is at the back of the aircraft, and we'll see that in a second. So yeah, we'd come down here, come down the steps, and then we would be here and begin around here. So the first thing we want to look at is just a general inspection of the area, making sure that there's no damage to the skin of the aircraft, of course. We also want to take a look at the angle of attack vanes, make sure there's no damage to them, and there's no ice accretion anywhere, especially if it's in the winter, you're doing winter operations, which we'll go through in another video at some point. So yeah, making sure that these are free of any damage at all. They're very important to the workings of the aircraft. Many systems use these, and we also want to make sure that the static ports for the first officer and the captain here is also free of any damage. There's no blockages, especially ice as well. And we just come over to this side. We've got the avionics equipment inlet valve. This is just to cool down the avionics equipment within the aircraft, and this should be closed or open depending on the temperature of the outside. As you can see, it's a nice warm morning here in JFK International, so the inlet valve is open, which means the other side will be open as well, and we'll see the other side as well. So basically it sucks in cool air from this side, swishes it around in the avionics compartment, and then expels warm air from the other side, which we'll see in a minute. So looking at the L1 door, we're just making sure that the skin around the door is damage free. If there is any damage, it might already be in the technical log, so just go and take a look in the tech log. If it hasn't been noted down, just go and call an engineer and get them to come and take a look at it and check it out. And then we get to the further to the front of the aircraft. We have an avionics compartment here. Just want to make sure that this hatch is nicely closed, flush with the aircraft and secure. And then we have the oxygen discharge disc here. We want to make sure that this is green. If it's not green, then it means the oxygen in the flight deck is not usable, and you want to be aware of that, because if you get to flight level 360, for example, and then you have a decompression and put your oxygen masks on and there's no oxygen, that could be a bit of a serious issue. So it definitely has to be green. Make sure you check that. And then coming further forward to the front of the aircraft, we've got the pitot here, pitot tubes. We want to make sure that these are free of any damage and any ice as well, and making sure there's nothing inside the actual tubes themselves. These are always heated whenever the aircraft is running, so you can expect to see some kind of heat marks and some burn marks, but there shouldn't be any corrosion whatsoever. But heat and burn marks is normal. Here we have the standby static port. We want to make sure that that is clear of any damage and ice as well. You'll probably hear this a lot, basically free of damage, free of ice, because especially in the winter operations, those are the main things that we're checking for regarding the skin of the aircraft and regarding the probes and ports. So yeah, making sure the standby static port is also free of ice and any damage. And then further down here we have the total air temperature probe, and same thing again, we just want to make sure that that looks absolutely normal, nothing in the little hole here, and there's no ice around there, it's not damaged at all. And then we come forward, we can check the windows from the outside, make sure they look okay, there's no cracks or any delamination or damage on there. And then we come to the front of the aircraft. We can take a look at the nose cone. In this area here you can see there's little latches here. So in this area of the aircraft you have the weather radar. So this area, this front nose cone, is made of a different type of material from the skin of the aircraft, and that's so the waves from the weather radar can actually penetrate the skin. So this material here is not as strong as the skin of the aircraft, so if you have a bird hitting this, or hail, large hailstones or anything, it could cause severe damage to this area. So definitely good to make sure there's no damage, cracks or any dents, and you also want to make sure that the latches are nice and snug, the nose cone is flush with the aircraft too. So then we can come forward here to the nose wheel. Lots going on here, as you can see. So we have the landing lights, the taxi lights and the runway turn-off lights. We want to make sure that none of these lenses are cracked or broken, and that they all look clean. We have the main strut here, and this is the oleo struts. We want to make sure that there's a good distance between the base of the nose wheel and the top section here. Roughly about 4 or 5 finger widths is enough. And we also want to make sure there's no oil leaking through here, because inside these struts we have a mix of a type of hydraulic fluid and nitrogen, and this is what is used in aircrafts for dampening. We don't use normal springs and suspension systems like we do in a car, because that would cause the aircraft to bounce more, so we want more of a dampening effect. So the hydraulic fluid is used for the dampening of the main landing, and the nitrogen is used for dampening of the smaller bits, smaller kind of dinks and donks on the runway and taxiway while we're taxiing. So yeah, just making sure there's no oil leaking through. Sometimes you can have little bits of like residual oil in there, that's fine, but if it's dripping constantly with oil, then it's definitely a no-go, and you need to give the engineers a call and let them know what's going on. And you also want to make sure that the landing gear pin is not installed here. You'll know if it's installed because it's got a long red lanyard attached to it as well, and that's something that the engineers install at night time when they're towing the aircraft, and it basically stops the landing gears from retracting. So if it is installed and you don't realise it, once you get airborne, then the landing gears won't retract and you have to come back and land again. Then we have this little box here. This little red light shows that the parking brake is selected. It's basically for the ground staff. So once we're in the aircraft and the ground staff ask us to turn the parking brake off, once we do that, this red light goes off, so the ground staff know when we've done it. But yeah, that's the main things to check here, and also checking the tyres themselves, making sure that they are free of any wear and tear, nothing sticking out, nothing sticking in them, and that they've not worn down to below limits, especially down to the canvas. And then here we have another hatch. We want to make sure that this is closed. Hatches quite often will have a seal on the handle. If the seal itself is unbroken, then it means that it's absolutely fine, that the engineers have sealed it up and it's not been opened since. If the seals have been broken and the hatch is quite easily accessible, it's a good idea to check inside them, but the avionics hatches usually is not something for the flight crew to open and check. But yeah, coming further this way, we have the total air temperature probe on the other side, on the first officer's side of the aircraft. So you want to make sure that that is absolutely clear, free of damage. And then moving backwards, we have another standby. Static port. So we want to make sure that that also is free of any blockages. Another pitot tube here, as you can see, and we want to make sure that that is free of any damage, same as all the others, all the other ports. And moving further back, we have the first officer's side, so you can just check the windscreens here as well. I forgot to mention, when you're at the front of the aircraft, you can check the two front windscreens, making sure there's no cracks or delamination on there. And it's a good idea to check them once you're inside the flight deck as well. So coming further to this side, you've got the other side of the avionics compartment here, and it's accessible through this hatch. So you want to make sure this hatch is closed and sealed and is nice and flush with the aircraft. And this is the avionics outlet vent, and it's quite, you don't realise it, but the air that comes out of here comes out at quite a speed. So if you're walking past and you don't really kind of pay attention, you don't realise that it's blowing warm air out, and it could really kind of take you by surprise. Not enough to cause any damage, but if you've got a very nice hairstyle, then it's quite possible that that will get blown out of shape. But yeah, making sure that this valve is, this vent is open or closed depending on the temperature. Moving back, we just look at the door here. So this is door 1 right, and it's the same thing, basically making sure around the aircraft that we don't have any damage from the loading trucks. There's a little metal area here, and that's because this part of the door, of course, is prone to more scuffs and scrapes from passengers coming on, you know, pulling their wheelie suitcases onto the aircraft and that kind of stuff. So there could be some scuffs and damage on here, but it's mainly the skin of the aircraft that we're looking for. Also making sure to see there's no big dents in the skin of the aircraft. Further back here, we've got some more static ports, making sure that that is free of any ice or damage. And we have some antennas down here as well, just making sure that those are damage free. And then we come towards the cargo hold. So this is the front cargo hold, and yeah, it's usually open if the baggage loaders have opened it. If you arrive to the aircraft before the loaders, then this will most likely be closed. So there's a little hatch here that you can pull open, and as long as the aircraft has power to the yellow hydraulic system, then you can open this using the hydraulic pump. So basically what we're looking for here is that the area around the door of the cargo hold is nice and clear, no damage here. Once or twice I have found some damage, and that's basically when the loaders bring the loading trucks to the aircraft and attach it a little bit too quickly, and sometimes it can cause a little donk on the aircraft. So just making sure there's no damage there. As mentioned before, if there is damage, take a look in the tech log. If it's not in the tech log, give the engineers a call for them to come and take a look themselves. And we come further to the rear of the aircraft here. We have a drain mast. These are heated and quite often they're dripping little bits of water, and yeah, making sure that that is not blocked in any way. If it is blocked, then it means that the water from the front galley can't actually escape, so it'll start to overflow in the front of the aircraft with inside. Here we have the cargo door selector. This is the one I was telling you about. So if you want to open the cargo door, as long as there's AC power to the electric hydraulic pumps, you can open this little hatch here, and then inside is the cargo door selector. You also have to make sure that this, if this is closed and you're doing the walk around, you want to take a look inside, make sure nothing in there. There's nothing. Make sure there's nothing in there that shouldn't be in there. So yeah. Coming further this way, we have the wing route. So this area there's not really much here. There's something missing here that it's not showing on this aircraft. This is where we usually have the fueling panel, and if it's closed, I'd take a look inside, make sure there's nothing in there that shouldn't be in there. And yeah, I'm not sure why it's not showing on this model of the aircraft, but hey, it should be here anyway. And then we have the leading edge of the wing. So just making sure that this leading edge is free of any ice and free of any damage. And then we can go further inside. We've got the landing light here, taking a look at the lens, so making sure the lens isn't cracked in any way, and that the landing light itself is flush with the aircraft. That's the retractable landing light. So there's two positions on the switches. One position, the first position, if you pop it down, will bring this landing light out of the aircraft and face forward, and the second position on the switch will turn the actual light on itself. So at the moment it's off and retracted. And now that we're here at the landing gear, we can take a look here. We have the actual main strut for the landing gear, and one of the things that we want to check here is to make sure that all the connections and bits and bobs look normal. There's nothing kind of sticking out or cracked or broken or anything like that. Also, we want to take a look and make sure that the landing gear pins aren't installed. It's quite easy to notice because they have a massive red piece of fabric dangling down on them. So if they are installed, you want to make sure that the engineers have been called for them to come and get it removed. And what else? Coming down here we have the brakes. You want to make sure that the brake wear pins are sufficient. It's not modelled here, you can't really see them, but there's little pins here and here, and it basically shows how much wear the brakes have left. I've never had it that the brake wear pins have gone below limits in my 15 years of flying, so these are absolutely fine. Also checking the brake pads, we're taking a look at the tyres themselves, making sure the tyres don't have anything sticking out of them, sticking into them, and making sure the wear and tear of the tyres is permissible as well. Definitely making sure that it's not down to the canvas, which I've never seen before in my years of flying. So bringing it over this way now to the engine 2. This is the panel where the engineers will refill the oil for the engine. When it comes to panels, there's only a few that we need to check on the ground, but the best way of thinking about it is if the panel is easily accessible by yourself, then it's easily accessible by others as well. If it's easily opened, then it's a good idea to just quickly pop them open, have a look inside, make sure there's nothing in there that shouldn't be in there, and then close them again. But of course, once you close it, you have to make sure that the latches are nice and secure, and that the panel itself, the hatch itself, is completely flush with the skin of the aircraft. Then we're coming back here. If we have a look down, underneath here we have a latch here, here and about here. There's 3 latches, and we just want to make sure that these latches are completely secure. It's happened several times before in the past that these latches haven't been secure, and once airborne, this shrouding for the engine has come undone and it's caused a bit of damage. But yeah, you want to make sure that those latches are completely closed and completely secure as well. Coming to the front of the aircraft, or coming to the front of the number 2 engine, you want to have a look at the engine cowl, and that's this area here, and this is the area that is anti-iced in flight. So you want to make sure there's no icing on there at all, and that it's free of any damage as well. And then coming inside, you want to have a look at the fan blades. Each fan blade should be free of any damage on any dents and all of that. But if there is, sometimes you do get some tiny dents and some tiny nicks, but if they've already been machined out by the engineers, you can kind of tell if they've been machined, and it will be in a tech log as well to say which fan blades have damage on them. But these are tiny amounts of damage. If they're severely dented and severely twisted, it's definitely a no-go. So you need to check with the engineers to make sure that that's the case. Also checking to make sure that there hasn't been any evidence of a bird strike. And up here as well, roughly around here, you'd have a sensor. It's a little probe, and it measures the air inlet pressure. It's not showing on this aircraft, but you want to make sure that that is also free of any ice and free of any damage. And this is the acoustic lining. You can see this little kind of creamy coloured bit here. This is the abradable lining, and so moving back and then around again, come to the other side of the engine, and we're just taking a look here at the skin, making sure there's no damage, and then we can come up, take a look at the leading edge of the wing. So from here we're just taking a look at the leading edge, making sure there's no damage here. This is the refueling port, so this is where the refueler will pop in his hose and refuel the aircraft. So that's closed now. And that's the main thing we're checking here is the leading edge, making sure there's no damage here. So this is a pressurization vent, so this is nothing, you want to make sure there's nothing stuck inside there. So here we have the FOP, which is the fuel over pressure protector, and if you look inside here, it's not modelled here on this aircraft, but on the real aircraft you're going to have a little white cross. This prevents overpressuring of the fuel tanks, and if the fuel in the tanks does get overpressured, it'll leak out of here. On the aircraft nowadays you have a little aerodynamic kind of triangle here, and that's because this used to cause some terrible whistling noises when the aircraft was coming into land, and they had to retrofit these little aerodynamic devices here to stop that from happening. But yeah, so you want to make sure you can see the little white cross in here, and there's another one over here as well, if we can find it. There it is. And there's another one just further on the inside of the wing as well, so you want to make sure that they are serviceable. So then we come to the tip of the wing. These are the position lights, and it should be on. Usually you need to be at a specific angle in the simulator to kind of show that it's on, but it is on inside the flight deck, so you'd have this light here, and of course this would be the green light, red light on the other side for the left wing, green light for the right wing, and yeah, that should be showing green, but it's not, but that's just a simulator issue. And then we come to, oh there we go, the green light's showing now. So yeah, like I mentioned, you just have to be at a certain angle for the actual light to show. But there it is anyway. And then coming to the wing fence, we have 4 static wicks on here, and plenty of static wicks on this aircraft. Just want to check there's no damage to this part of the aircraft, and that there's the static wicks are all there. If there's any missing, it's not a no-go. You can just go and take a look in the minimum equipment list, and but if there is any missing and it's not mentioned in the tech log, then an engineer needs to be called. And coming further across, we have the right aileron, and as you can see it's drooping because there's no hydraulic power to the aircraft itself. Unlike the 737, for example, the actual flight control services on the Airbus A320 are not connected mechanically to the flight controls. They're only connected to the hydraulics, so when the hydraulics aren't powered, then these flight controls droop, of course. Once the hydraulic power comes on, though, these will come up and become flush with the wing, as long as the flight control itself isn't being utilised. Coming further across, more static wicks on the shrouding of the flap track fairings. Yeah, we're just checking for damage here, making sure there's no damage at all, no dents or anything here. And there's another one there. Then we come to the rear of the engine. This is quite important, actually. People don't realise it's quite possible for there to be some kind of animal nesting in here. It's a good idea to check. This is the exhaust area of the high pressure section of the engine, the core, and in here it's quite possible to have like little birds roosting, little birds nesting, or just resting. So take a look in there, make sure there's nothing in there. And then also, this is the high bypass area. This is where all the cold air gets shot out from the rear of the aircraft, so you want to make sure there's nothing in there as well. And definitely checking for any evidence of bird strikes from this section as well. And then moving back, we have the other side of the wheel, or the main landing gear, and you want to make sure there's no hydraulic fluid leaking out of any of these pipes, and of course that this side of the tyre is free from any damage, and the normal wear and tear as well. And then we have another drain vent, another heated vent here, so we just want to make sure that that's not blocked. And then coming further back here, we have this antenna, which is the VHF2 antenna, I believe. So we want to make sure that that's free of any damage as well. Then we go to the aft cargo hold. We have it open again here, just to show you what it looks like on the inside. We're just taking a look at the outside area, making sure there's no damage to this area of the skin again. And then we can come to the underside, and we're looking at the cargo door selector here. We want to open this, make sure there's nothing hiding in there that shouldn't be in there, and then we can close it again. Here we have radio altimeters, and there's 2 there, and there's 2 there, and we want to make sure that those are free of any damage as well. If we move further back, we have the bulk cargo door. I've only ever seen this door open once, and yeah, I can't really reach it to open it, so I usually just leave it closed. But yeah, we want to make sure that there's no damage around this area as well. Of course, it can be used sometimes, but where the airline that I work for, we never use it. So yeah, we just want to make sure there's no damage to the outside section of the door and around the skin of the aircraft. Coming further back now, we have the outflow valve. You just want to have a look in there, make sure there's nothing in there that shouldn't be in there, whether it's an animal or someone's popped something in there at all. And this is the servicing panel for the toilets. This is where they connect the tubes and suck out all the waste that's been collecting in the tanks. So yeah, just make sure that that's flush with the aircraft as well, and that it's not opened. Another drain mast here. You want to have a look at it, make sure there's nothing obvious that's blocking it from going. And then this is the outlet for the vacuum system for the toilets. When you're doing the walk around, it's a good idea actually to try and not walk under this, because initially what the cabin crew will do a test of all the toilets and flush them. And if you walk under this, you're not going to get wetter, you're not going to get any waste on you, but the air that comes out smells like toilet air, so it's not a nice thing to walk under. So yeah, try and stay away from it, but have a look inside, make sure there's nothing blocking it at all. And then we have the door to right. So this is used usually to load persons of reduced mobility and also for catering. And the same thing again, you're just making sure that there's no damage to the side here. As mentioned, quite often you can get a few dents and donks here, so taking a look there. Right, then we come to the horizontal stabilizer. We just want to have a look at the leading edge here, making sure there's no damage to that. And then we come to the side, we've got the static wicks here again, and we just want to make sure that they're all there. If they're not, give the engineer a call. And as you can see here, the control surface is floppy as well, because and drooped, because there's no hydraulic power to the aircraft. And just coming back further here to the rear, you can see the white nav light, the white position light here is on as well. We want to make sure that that's functioning. And then further down here we have the inlet for the APU. At the moment it's closed because the APU is not running, but once we press the buttons to get the APU running, this door will open and it'll all start up. I want to make sure that these hatches, these little latches here, are all closed properly. That's to access the APU for servicing, so they all have to be closed. Also, there's a little disc here. I'm not sure if you can see it. Let's zoom in right there. There's a little red disc here, and this is I'm not sure why Airbus made it red, but that's the colour they decided to choose for this area. And if it's red, it's fine. This basically shows whether the fire suppression system has leaked. If the temperature gets really high, the pressure can build up in the APU fire bottle, and the actual contents can leak out. So as long as this is red, then it's absolutely fine. So further to the rear of the aircraft, you just want to have a look up here, making sure that the vertical tail plane itself is in good condition. The rudder here as well looks good, and on the other side as well, of course, you want to check the same thing, and static wicks should be up here as well. Then we have more static wicks on this side, and then taking a look at the other vertical stabilizer, making sure the leading edge looks absolutely fine, all good there. And this is door to left, so you want to make sure that the same thing really, no damage to the skin of the aircraft, expecting a few scuffs and duffs here, but looking fine. And then continuing across. Now this area here we have the potable water servicing hatch, and this is where they connect the actual water that's used for tea, coffee, washing your hands and all that kind of stuff. So you want to make sure that this is also secure and flush with the aircraft. Taking a look here at this area, just over the skin of the aircraft, making sure there's no damage. You do usually have, it's not showing on this model here, but there are two hatches here for hydraulic reservoir refilling, but it's not showing, so that's fine. But you just make sure that those are closed as well. Okay, coming to the trailing edge of the left wing now. So just looking at the flaps here, making sure that they're all clear of any damage, looking good. And then we go to the rear of the left main landing gear, making sure the tyres again are free of any damage. Wear and tear looks good, and there's nothing leaking out from the hydraulics here. And of course just taking a look at giving a good general visual inspection of the actual components here, taking a look to make sure there's no landing gear pin installed in there as well. Coming further back, we can just take a little walk across the left, making sure we're looking at all the flap track fairing cases. Everything looks in good condition. So within these little cases here, actually, you have the entire mechanisms to move the flaps in and out. These sections are just added on top of them to make it more aerodynamic. And I have flown an aircraft before where this actual shrouding has not been there because it needs to be replaced and they haven't had a part ready. So if that's the case, then you just see the actual mechanism inside, and all it means is there's a tiny extra fuel penalty, which is usually on the flight plan itself. If it's not on the flight plan, you just have a look in the CDL, which is the configuration deviation list, and that will give you what fuel penalty you need to add to your flight plan fuel to account for that. So yeah, coming along on this side, static wicks on the edge of the flap track fairing covers, and then we have the other aileron here as well. We have the wing fence, make sure there's no damage to that. Position light on the left wing, expecting it to be red, and yes, it is red. And then we come forward as well. So here we have the other fuel overpressure protector, and we want to have a look in there, making sure that white cross is in there. And then we have a look at the leading edge of the wing, making sure there's no ice accretion on here, especially during winter ops periods. And there's another fuel overpressure protector there as well. So just have a look in there, making sure that nothing's leaking out. So then we get to the side of the engine again. This is now the number 1 engine. So the left side is the number 1 engine, and the right side of the aircraft is the number 2 engine. And once again, it's an exact carbon copy of the other engine. We're just looking on here, making sure that it's all secure. Good idea to just check inside, take a look, there's nothing in there, but we're not checking for any oil quantities or anything like that. That's all checked inside the aircraft. We just open it, have a look inside, make sure there's nothing in it that shouldn't be in there, and then close it again, making sure it's nice and secure. Again, crouch down here, you can take a look, there's a latch here, here and here, and you just want to make sure that those latches are really secure and not loose whatsoever. Once again, coming into the inlet of the number 1 engine, taking a look at the engine cowling, making sure that there's nothing on there that shouldn't be there and that there's no ice at all, and then having a look at the actual fan blades themselves, once again making sure for no damage, and again checking that little sensor there is free of any ice, and the acoustic lining looks good as well. Comes to this side, we're just having a look at the general engine itself, making sure there's no damage to any of the shrouding, and then looking at the leading edge of the wing, making sure there's no damage or ice accretion there. And here we have the inlet of the left pack, and if we come under here you can see the front part of the left main landing gear, and again just making sure that there's a general visual inspection, making sure it looks all good on this side. No gear pins, no landing gear pins installed, and there's no hydraulic fluid leaking out of here. Also just want to check the strut here to make sure that it looks about normal. You can't quite see it through all the components there. And also checking the brake wear pins. Checking the retractable landing light again, making sure it's flush with the aircraft. And this section here, this is where the ram air turbine is housed. So you just want to make sure that that is all closed and secure and flush with the aircraft as well. If there's anything sticking out of there, then go and call an engineer so they can put it back in. And that's the lower beacon light, and there's one on the top of the aircraft as well. And here we have the hatches for the high pressure air and the low pressure air. The low pressure air is for air conditioning, and the high pressure air is for the external air carts, so you can start the engines on the ground with the external air carts. And I forgot to mention, as you can see here, you have the inlet for the left pack, and I forgot to mention on the other side you have the inlet for the right pack over here. And then once we get to this section, we're just taking a look at general condition of the skin of the aircraft. That's the runway turnoff. That's the wing light, so that shines a light onto the wing, so you can have a look in the flight deck, look back and see if there's any ice accretion on the wing as well. And that is it. That is the walk around of the Airbus A320, and those are all the things that we look for once we're doing the walk around on the real aircraft. If you do have any questions whatsoever, or you want to know anything, then please do leave your question in the comment section below. I hope you've liked this video. If you have liked it, leave a thumbs up. If you've loved it, then please do consider subscribing, and I'll be posting a video every week about the general use of the Airbus A320. And as mentioned previously, please do remember that this whole video is not for real world use. If you are an airline pilot, please do follow your FCOMs and your company manuals. This is just for fun, just so you can make your flight simulator experience a bit more realistic and as fun as possible. But yeah, I will see you in the next video. In the meantime, please do sit back, relax, enjoy the flight, and happy contrails.